So Tim, thanks
Hey.
for having us here.
You're always welcome.
Yeah, so we've been doing this California road trip, and we've been doing it on the theme of inspiration, pursuit of inspiration. And I believe inspiration is something that you do have to pursue. You have to go and you find those things that direct you. And I can see this room. You've set this up to deliver inspiration. It's a pretty nice space.
Thank you. Yeah, it's designed for workflow. And because I did so many records, I wanted to create something that instead of being behind people or to the side of people, because when you're overdubbing, you're either behind them or to the side of them, because usually a big console and speakers, or if you're tracking, you have headphones on. This is designed so that we sit opposite each other. There's a producer desk. We have mirrored screens, mirrored monitors. So when I'm working with you, like, let's say the camera is you, our eyes are connected the whole time. So I can judge how you feel every second. And we can both actually run the machine. So if I'm a little faster at it, I can do it instead of you. If it's something that I am quicker at just doing rather than asking you to do, if you're the engineer, I can do that. So what it does, and because everything's so tight there, it's like an airplane cockpit, it creates workflow where you shave off 5 seconds here, 30 seconds here, 10 seconds here, a minute here. So you can actually get so much more done so much faster. But mainly I can tell how people are feeling because I'm looking straight at them while I'm working.
That's really interesting. Yeah, so I guess you're producing music for somebody else.
That was my career until I became more of a YouTuber and created my, my masterclass, which is my educational platform. So now I do make music for myself. So it's kind of been this full circle thing. But yes, you are correct. My whole professional life was serving songwriters, producers, engineers, artists, composers.
So I'll be very interested to know, how you take that flow of inspiration, and I'm assuming you're taking a lead from what that particular track is, and then you have a certain degree of freedom within that to
Absolutely.
put something down.
Yeah, it's a great question because they're bringing me something that generally doesn't have guitar, or maybe it has a few guitars on it, and they're expecting me to make it blossom, to make it get bigger, and so that in itself triggers me just to dive in, basically. And you know about inspiration. If you just start the work, the inspiration will come. I mean, that's one of the tricks, right? Is you don't wait to be inspired, you start. And then the inspiration comes, and it's like it, cycles like this. So it's the people in the room, it's whatever is great about the track, and the track may not be the best piece of music you've ever heard, but the people are great, and my job is to make it as good as I can. So even if the track is not the greatest song ever, the drums might be great, the keyboards might be great, the chords might be great. You see what I'm saying? There might be something about it that is not great, but I don't make that judgment. I just try and make what I do great and make their dream come true. So it's the inspiration kind of builds up as we work. And particularly in the first 15 or 20 minutes, if they're new people, you really want to do something that excites them. You want to make the first 15 minutes really good, so then everybody relaxes and you can just kind of take it from there.
And I guess you probably feed off that when you see the
Exactly.
enthusiasm and the reaction, and
Yeah,
you see
exactly.
they're enjoying it. Or
Yeah.
it's great to have that sort of face-to-face then.
Yeah, it is.
I get that feeling a little bit as a guitar maker as well, because I'm not really a good guitar player. So I'm always making a guitar for somebody else, and seeing that reaction of what they want and how that comes together.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And when I held your guitar in my hands at NAMM, I kind of felt that too. It's like, oh, this is really a cool thing. It's really unique. It's unusual. It's new. It's light. I liked it.
It's different.
Yeah.
And we're surrounded by different guitars here, and just like you say, you hold it, it does, it says something different, and every guitar, I'm sure, here has a different story and will direct you in a different direction.
Truth, absolute truth, yeah. And that's an amazing thing about guitars, because I don't think there are a lot of other instruments that trigger you that way. each guitar, and it's funny, the older I get, the more it happens now. I actually appreciate guitars more now, you know. Different models, different versions of the same model, you know, they're all different. They all speak in a different way. They all feel different.
I heard somebody say recently that the guitar plays them. Have you ever had that?
Absolutely. I can speak on that. That's actually a really good way to put it. And for me, the way that manifests is, say this thing. It's not that easy to play. It doesn't have a lot of sustain. So I have to fight this guitar a little bit when I play it. And that makes me a different guitar player. Maybe it makes me more like a teenager. Maybe that's a good thing. And then because this guitar actually sounds kind of thin, it has a lot of transient and not a lot of sustain. So I'm going to create a guitar part that works for this sound. That actually, it drives me to create a part that actually maybe is busier because there's less sustain, or a part that's more pointed because this guitar is more pointed sounding. So it's exactly what you're talking about. The sound you have up actually creates what you chase. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, people will ask us, you know, what's the best guitar you build? Or you hear people talking about what's the best guitar in the world. There's no such thing.
No such thing.
It's the right guitar for the right musician and the right piece of music, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love for you to maybe walk us through some of the different guitars and give us a little bit of tour, and
absolutely.
Maybe you can point to some guitars that have been specific tracks.
Well, I don't always remember what I've used on specific tracks, but I can certainly talk about the guitars. I mean, this is a 1952 J185 that I bought at Norm's, and it had a cracked top, so I got a good price on it. Usually the vintage guitars that I have are player grade, which means they're devalued by modifications or a broken neck or something, some repair or something like that. And this is like that. So when Norm gets guitars, he has people waiting to buy them. So I seized this. I bought it. If I had let this sit there for another 3 hours, it would have been gone. So I bought it, and I'm glad I did. It's a really nice sounding, big-bodied old guitar. Then you have this guy. This is the Mike Campbell Duesenberg special edition that he kind of commissioned, and this is a really nice guitar. And, you know, Tom Bukovac has his signature version of a Duesenberg also. Well, this is fun. Actually, I've never done this exact thing, and I'll try and keep it under control. This is a guitar I really love. It's a Joe Bonamassa reissue 335. It's very nice. You know, pretty modern guitar, but a really, really nice one. Here we have a Supro baritone with gold foil pickups.
Very
really
cool.
Has a great sound. I love the wood too. Just love seeing wood. So here we have some PRSs. We'll just look at this one. This is the David Grissom model, and David Grissom spent 20 years developing this guitar. And some people think it's the best PRS. It really sounds great. It feels great. This is kind of a reissue of the guitar that started it all for Paul, which is the Santana Retro. The original Santana PRSs looked a lot like this. I love that guitar too. Let's see what else. This is a friend of mine. Floyd Rose is actually a friend of mine. And this is the guitar that he makes. And it's kind of a secret. Not a lot of people know about this guitar, but it's an amazing kind of super strat. You know, you've heard the phrase super strat.
Yeah, sure.
It's an amazing one. So yeah, there's some of them. They're not all here. I'm trying to actually thin it out a little bit so that the room is not so cluttered.
And I love that there's so much variety. You know, there's not one particular brand or particular style.
Well, and for tracking, for playing on songs, you need all these. Or somebody might request, do you have an old Gretsch? You know, and I do have an old Gretsch. So this is a 1958 Firejet.
Oh my goodness!
Which, until you get up close, looks kind of brand new. So
it's 1958, and that's
sounds really good.
It's in such incredible condition.
Now I have a new Gretsch that I really like. It's called a Player's Edition that you can get at any music store. That's actually in some ways better than this. So that's the other thing I found. New guitars are, to me, often better than old guitars. So I'm not a vintage snob at all.
But do you find there is some guitars that, some of the vintage stuff that just has that little bit of special tone?
I do, but at the same time, I'm the guy, and I've done these tests. I've done a test where you take a 1959 Les Paul that a friend of mine owns in the studio, and I take my reissue Les Paul. We A/B them, kind of sound the same. So I think Joe Bonamassa has said the same thing in interviews, and he has one of the biggest collections of vintage guitars in the world, and he would actually say the same thing.
And I guess there's so many other things involved. You know, there's the guitar, there's how you play it, and then what you're putting it through.
Yeah, and the wood, you know, the wood on a vintage guitar is so dry. That alone makes it amazing. You know, it's the old wood actually makes the vintage guitar amazing. But then here's my cockpit, which I sit here. I can reach all the amps. I'm building kind of a new pedal system here, so these are not all hooked up, but this is designed for me to reach everything while I'm working and have no downtime plugging stuff in, like that, literally like an airplane cockpit. So it works really, really well for workflow and for choosing different amps. You know, I might use the Park for something clean, the Basement for a very vintagey sound. These Marshalls sound amazing. The Matchless is essentially a Vox. So on it goes. You know, it's very easy to do stuff really, really fast.
I see your great record collection here as well. I'm sure some of that you're on, and some
Actually, none of that.
No?
No. Like I said, I kind of downplay the work I've done on people's records. That's for everybody else, not for me.
Okay.
Yeah. No, those are my favorite records.
the music that inspires you.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was lucky in that my love of music comes from radio in the 60s.
Okay.
So it's not even about guitar, it's about songs. So I was born in 58, so when I was, 5 years old, I was listening to the Beatles. When I was 9 years old, I was listening to, 10 years old, listening to Cream and Hendrix. And on it goes. So it's really.
That's just such an incredible era to have been growing up and listening to music in.
Yeah.
You can't help but be inspired by that.
And that's really it for me. I was inspired by songs on the radio, and it was AM radio back then, and then FM showed up. So that that old. It's wonderful. I wouldn't change it for being born then, and coming of age during that period I feel very, very grateful for it.
So I guess that's probably that music that still inspires you. It's digging back into that as you're playing every day.
Absolutely. I need to go back and discover the Beatles again right now. And you can rediscover Motown all the time. You can do it forever. I'm about to do an Edgar Winter song on my YouTube channel called Frankenstein. I have a friend, Colin Hay from Men at Work, who's going out with Ringo and the All-Stars right now. And he came over. We played some guitar the other day, and he had me help him with Frankenstein, just some of the moves on that. And I thought, I'm going to do that on my YouTube channel. So you're constantly reminded there are these treasures you can go back and mine. But I also do new stuff. I did a YouTube video a couple of months ago where I played guitar over the weekend's Blinding Lights because I really like that song. It has no guitars in it, so I just dropped some guitars into it. There's some new stuff I really like. I really like Ed Sheeran too. I love his songs. So there's a lot of new people I like too.
Very cool. Well, thanks for having us here. It's always great to be surrounded by somebody who has really been inspired and gone through the depths of music.
Well, you've asked great questions, and it's inspiring just talking about this stuff. I listened to an interview with a film composer recently where he said inspiration is for amateurs, okay? Now, it's a little bit harsh, but all that means is if you start the work, the inspiration sometimes will follow. The inspiration doesn't always come first. Just sit down and start. And I've had the experience where I've felt sick, like I had the flu or a cold, and I start playing. I don't feel sick anymore. I don't know if you guys have had that experience too, but music is that way. So that it comes, is it the chicken or the egg? If you just start, the inspiration will come.
Yeah, and that's why I talk about the pursuit of inspiration. I do think it's something you have to be consciously going out and looking. Sometimes you get hit with a bus, so you can't avoid it. But you got to go looking for it. We've come to California looking for inspiration, and we've definitely received it.
Well, I've received it from you, and your guitars are inspiring too, so keep going.
Oh, thank you.
Well, that was a really insightful conversation with Tim Pearce. So it's off to the airport and we fly back to Ireland. But the fun doesn't stop there, because next week I'm going to be interviewing Steve Vai, the reason that I first picked up a guitar.